Sure, I'm definitely Jonathan.
And I'm almost certainly Fiona.
And this is innerVIVID, part number 65,922. But sure, I'm just rounding off. We're coming to you from the unceded lands of the Yagara and Turrbal people. And we're fortunate to be able to do that.
This time around, we go deeper into the steps that we call next, or next steps, as the Next Step online community calls them. Last time, we wondered how a typical person might commit to such a spiritual path, and we heard from our IV experts on just how they do that stuff. This time, we get serious.
It's become clear that while we've probably all had moments in our life that we can now start to call spiritual, moments of awe on starry nights, moments of connection at a footy grand final or last night of the tour gig, moments of wonder as a little kid says their first word. And yes, we've all had those waves crashing in moments. Those things are, yes, moments.
It might take some other stuff to understand those moments and work out how to seek more from day to day. The Tillies have to train. Musicians have to practice. Spiritual people do the same. But when you love it, it's fun, right?
What grows my faith and spirituality is spending time in creation, bushwalking, being amongst nature. You know you're just in touch with something that is so much bigger, more powerful, but also so deeply connected to yourself. That's probably the primary way. And then the other way is just being in deep relationship with other human beings. We're crazy and messy and beautiful and lovely and infuriating, and it's being in relationship with other people that we really get to know ourselves.
What grows your faith and spirituality?
I think the best word to use is surprises, because I have been surprised lots of time by people's goodwill towards me, which far outweigh people's nastiness towards me.
What grows my spirituality? Actually, being part of other communities, such as the open mic night community, where people share things and look after each other.
What grows your spirituality?
My dogs. So look, my dogs coming home in the afternoon and just knowing just that real love.
Personally, my faith is growing most when I'm challenged, when I really have to dig in and think about things, when I'm pushed, when someone disagrees with me. That challenges me in a way that I used to enjoy, but these days I really do. I question myself and try and learn. So yeah, that's what grows me. I think everyone has a spirituality. Everyone has some belief, and I guess it's when they're challenged that they may come to know more.
How do you nourish your spirituality?
Stare at the sea. So I've been really blessed in the last couple of years to live in places by water, and for some reason I find that the simple act of sitting and staring at the sea is probably the core part of where my spiritual nourishment comes from.
Okay, enough from us. Here's the question, and then we'll get straight into it. Remember from last step, there's no one way. Just see who inspires you and what you can take away.
How can I cultivate or nourish my sense of spirituality? Are there resources from experience or history for this?
I think there are lots of resources. There's sacred writing, what I would call sacred writing, wise writing in every faith that I think tries to point us to a life beyond ourselves and to daily practices that can help us tune into that. Prayer is a common one in that kind of way, but what we do in prayer can vary according to different religions. But some of the common elements are stillness, and becoming conscious of breath, the gift of that, the in and the out, and then focusing on the other. Sometimes I think in our Western tradition we use a lot of words, so we will offer words of thanks, and then we'll offer words of question. Sometimes we're quiet, waiting for the answer. Sometimes that will come immediately, sometimes later, sometimes not at all. But I think another part of prayer is just simply being conscious that we are we are present in the sense of greatness, something beyond our understanding, and that is beneficial to us somehow. There are spiritual practices like fasting, which means going without food for a period, and that period may be for a day, or it may be for a few hours, and it may be fasting from food, or it may be fasting from other things that distract us. And I find it helpful sometimes to fast from the internet. So suddenly that which is in my life, which is full of emails and streaming, all of those things, that becomes silent. And that enables other things to be heard. And I'm very fortunate to live where I live, because sitting in my yard or working in my yard, there is birdsong, there are sounds of the wind through the trees, and suddenly there is a stillness which is different. There are some people who think you can only pray when you're still. But I have to say, my experience is it can also be helpful to become conscious and present and attentive when you're walking. To go from one place to another place, there is this sense of journey. And so as we journey, we leave some things behind and we gain some things, but we have a sense of moving forwards all the time. So there are lots of resources. I think I've just named the 3.
Well, I have 3 initial suggestions. One is there's no harm in reading about this stuff. Even though you can't learn it from a book, you can read about other people's experiences, read about some suggestions, and you can take from other people's experiences maybe something that might work for you. That's my first suggestion. My second suggestion would be meeting with a spiritual director. These are people who are specially trained in working with people to find their spiritual side and to nourish their spiritual side. I have one myself, and I find huge benefit from sitting with a spiritual director and just talking and letting the spirit interact with us. And I find that really helpful. And thirdly, you've just got to let it be and give it time to happen. And sometimes that can be really frustrating, but you've got to dedicate the time to letting it happen. And that's my third suggestion.
I think that the first thing you can do is pay attention. Pay attention to what's going on in your heart, so in you, and pay attention to what's going on in the world, and then work out how you can participate in the world in a way that is authentic and true to who you are. And I think a lot of religious traditions, all the way through, they talk about, wake up, pay attention, be alert. And it's all about doing firstly the work of self-examination, but then working out how that leads you to engage in the world.
I think you just have to get out there and try to find the thing that makes your spirit sing. I think there's going to be as many different answers to this question as there are individuals that walk on this planet. So for some people it might be engaging in a particular church practice. For some people it might be sitting with rosary beads. For some people it might be walking in nature. For some people it might be engaging in a particular type of study, for instance. For me, it's going on silent retreats and meditation, but again, it's going to be different for every single person.
Oh yeah, we love that. Find the thing that makes your spirit sing. That's so cool. That's like my new mantra, I reckon. We like that on 2 levels. 1, it suggests you've already got some stuff going on that can just be enhanced. For me, making and listening to music and experiencing it live, I'm doing these things all the time, and that definitely makes my spirit sing. So maybe I could just be getting into those moments more, reflecting on them, feeling gratitude for them. That sounds tip-top to me.
The second thing about this is that it feels like it would be a simple thing to do. It wouldn't feel too much like homework or something. I mean, don't get me wrong, thinking about your next steps, well, some effort might be required. But I'm really loving what Kate said there. Anyway, there's definitely more good ideas.
I think the best place to start for cultivating your own sense of spirituality is with yourself. I've spent quite a bit of time in a school community, and people would say to me, that experience I've just described to you, could that be God? And I would say to that person, well, what do you think? And they would say, well, perhaps it could be. And I might say, perhaps it was. For a person to start with the moments in their own life where they've noticed that they've been captivated in a particular way that's beyond simply a physical or an intellectual realm. This sense of being known and held and loved by something that's greater than themselves, that we might call a transcendent moment or an experience of the divine. Some people might use the word God to describe that person or relationship. And so that would be the second one. The first thing would be to dig deep into your own resources. The second one would be to find life in community with like-minded people. And when I say like-minded, I mean people who will value and honour your experience, and you are willing to listen to their experiences and to grow and share by being in community with others. I think human beings long for connection and belonging, and I really think that community and connection is at the heart of a healthy spirituality.
And now for something completely different. It's theme 8, but this might be the first time we've mentioned pizza?
It seems to me that the best forms of spirituality are not about adding, but about subtracting. So the best forms of spirituality are not about saying, do this, do that, make this happen, become a better person, maximize your potential, maximize your enjoyment, become the best you that you can be. I think we're sort of bombarded with that message. I don't think that's really helpful. I think one name that you can kind of give that kind of collection of messages, and I'm getting this from the theorist named Lauren Berlant, is cruel optimism. This idea that we're just bombarded with this sense that you've got to become better. And yet it's ultimately kind of an impossible and cruel injunction to sort of maximize yourself. So I think spirituality, the best kind of things are about not adding, but about subtracting. So if I was just to give a kind of practical example, I would say, look in the mirror, look at yourself, and say to yourself, I am a wound. And then go sit on the couch and eat an entire tub of ice cream or an entire pizza, and just like be ridiculously kind and generous with yourself. And then see what happens. Not go and make something happen, just see what happens.
When I was working in schools, one of the things our Year 8 students needed to do was to keep a gratitude journal. And so they were asked at the end of every day to record 3 things that they felt positive about. So one way of developing a spirituality is to stop and think about what we're grateful for. Not to ignore all that's wrong, but to shift our focus and to engage with that. And then there's some processes where once you've done that, you might think, well, how can I experience those things I'm thankful for more deeply? You might like to go into an art gallery and look at all the artwork in a beautiful place of worship of some kind.
I think the first thing we have to do to foster that part of us that we might call the spiritual part is to hit pause. My husband calls it PBR, pause, breathe, reset. We need to stop doing all the busyness and the filling our life up with noise and doing. It means putting the phone down, turning the music off, being okay with a space of nothing to allow what's within us to bubble up. It might be a moment where you connect with something in nature. For my brother, it's found when he's surfing. He's in there, there's nothing around him except the waves and the sky and the breeze and the sounds of that. And that's where, in that moment of pausing and breathing, he feels that bubble up within him. It can happen anytime. You might find the things that work for you that can do that.
You know, it might be gazing at the stars. It might be interacting with a friend. It might be being somewhere. And I think about the airport. You know, when you're at the airport and you see families and lovers reuniting, that, you know, those moments you just go, oh, if I could bottle this feeling, find that for yourself. But it means hitting pause on the things that distract us.
There are so many resources to use to nurture your own spirituality. And I think one of the important things is that people are so different. The things that work for me may not work for you. And that's because we've got different personalities and we experience the world in a different way. We learn in different ways. So I think it's important for people to dig into some of those resources. And they're things that, again, humans have been doing for thousands and thousands of years. Now, some of them I think you have to have a good go at, because the first time that you try meditation, for instance, may be very hard. So I think some of them take practice, but I think having a go and seeing what it is that nurtures your own spirituality is really important. The list that I always liked was from Richard Foster's book, Celebration of Discipline. And, you know, he talks about inner disciplines, which are, you know, those things that we might do like solitude, prayer, meditation, contemplation. Then he'd talk about the outer disciplines, which might be things like, you know, service and even things like fasting, which might be giving something up for a period of time. And then he would talk about corporate disciplines, so things that people do together. So that would be things like, you know, worship, going to church and participating in you know, maybe study with other people and stuff like that. All of those things can be helpful spiritual practices.
Asking questions, I think, is the first thing that I would start with. Rather than looking for answers, ask questions. Seek out people who are also questioning, rather than people who've got all the answers. And ask questions together. There are amazing books and resources, podcasts, videos on faith and spirituality that are so accessible these days. But don't look for the right one. Look for the one that helps you ask more questions.
So many ideas in this video. Because we're helpful people, trust me, we've prepared this quick summary.
I find that the simple act of sitting and staring at the sea is probably the core part of where my spiritual nourishment comes from.
Seeing what it is that nurtures your own spirituality is really important.
I think you just have to get out there and try to find the thing that makes your spirit sing.
Just like be ridiculously kind and generous with yourself. And then see what happens.
Being okay with a space of nothing to allow what's within us to bubble up.
You've just got to let it be and give it time to happen.
Go sit on the couch and eat an entire tub of ice cream or an entire pizza.
We could have just showed you this with more emphasis on ice cream and pizza. Anyway, did some ideas stand out to you? What do you think?